Welcome, everybody, to the Seattle Sports Union podcast. My name is Abraham DeWeese. I'm back with Nathan Savage and that SoCal Seahawk, Rob English. And on the boards, of course, is the Soul Man, Brian Solak. All right, guys, we're back from a yet another ugly win against, this time, the Cleveland Browns. I think, Nathan, what you said a couple weeks ago, this is how it's going to be, isn't it? Just ugly game after ugly game.
Yeah, maybe we got to talk about this next game soon, but at least for the teams that are coming up and the teams that we're playing recently, just with really solid defensive lines, not as good maybe on the offensive side of things. It's just going to be those old school kind of a little bit grimy games. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be ugly. Certainly if we don't figure out what's going on with the offense. But what I will say is, during periods of time where we were really good, we found ways to win ugly games. We won ugly a lot. I think we kind of forget about that. Because there was we experienced such a long period of time of being really good that you don't worry about those games that you just kind of won ugly because you won. And when you go into the playoffs and making it to the NFC Championship and things like that, or at least the divisional round, you kind of forget those things quick. So winning ugly is a valuable tool that is easily forgotten about after the fact, I think.
You're going to be that guy, right? You're going to be the one that's like, I want an exciting game every week down to the nitty gritty. Rob, can't we just blow a team out every once in a while?
I would very much like to see it.
Was this a bad looking so ugly? I mean, is this as we reflect on, I think especially the offense, is there a fundamental root underlying problem, or is this just some bad mojo in the last couple weeks?
I guess,
you guys think,
yeah. So I guess for me, I would say on one thing though, on a high note, I think in the two losses, it seemed like Gino late in the game would just still never figure it out. He would start getting in trouble on offense. They couldn't move the ball. And by the end of the game, they just still couldn't figure out the game would end. And one thing I was really excited about this week was they figured it out in the end to win the game. They needed that one drive. They needed that one little bit of magic, maybe even old school like Russ style, where you just need something to get going and it feels like you'll get it at the end of the game and you win. And this week they were able to do it. But I will say on that fundamental side of things, not to again be talking about the O-line, but against teams where it's close to elite or an elite level of D-line, it seems like that's a really almost like Achilles heel with Gino. Honestly, I saw a similar thing with this Ravens team against the Lions, where Jared Goff is like leading the NFL in so many major stats as QB. Maybe he was even looking like an MVP contender, but once he loses that protection, once an elite D-line comes into town, he turns into almost like, Jello and just kind of like falls apart. So, yeah.
Let's talk about the Ravens. Do you guys think the Ravens are an elite defense, or are they getting by on brand name?
Well, the Ravens I don't know if you apply the tag of elite, but they're very good. And their secondary is at or near at the top of the league as well. So they've been playing well this year. They may or may not have the marquee names you're looking for, but they've been playing well. So we're definitely going to have our hands full on the offensive side of the ball.
What do you guys think about defensively? Lamar Jackson seems to be making a comeback, from a couple years that were a little bit off. Seahawks do not stop running quarterbacks very well. We didn't do it against Dobbs. We didn't do it against PJ Walker is his name, I believe, the Cleveland quarterback. Are we looking at some trouble here, or do you guys think we can learn from our past mistakes here?
So I guess, again, that is totally the weakness, I would say, right now, it seems like, with the defense, and especially on third down defense and letting drives extend. I do think Lamar is the type of QB that, against our secondary and how elite it's been, could easily, end up with 2-3 picks in the game. But if they don't get those turnovers, I think he's really going to be able to extend drives with his legs. And, as good as Josh Dobb looked on that 25-yard touchdown run against the Seahawks, I think Lamar Jackson's going to look a lot faster, a lot more shifty. And it just feels like that's the type of quarterback that will come in and be able to march down the field and extend drives, keep Geno off the field, and actually be able to have these extended drives against the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, he's Lamar Jackson, right? At the end of the day, he is Lamar Jackson. So the threat to run the football is always going to be there. But I think he only ran the ball last week for like 2 yards. So, but the change up though there was their running back, whose name is escaping me in the moment. He ran the ball very well. So when you have two running threats, on an offense, and you have that danger of that kind of that read option look. You don't know who's actually going to be leaving the backfield with the ball. It becomes difficult, and we have looked good against the run. It's sad because historically we've historically been good against running quarterbacks, but here recently we've had a little trouble. I think it's really going to come down to if the offense can keep pace. I don't see how we keep Baltimore out of the end zone.
Oh boy, but that's kind of the reason, guys, why they brought in the big cat himself, right? Leonard Williams from the uh, New York Giants. Um, I This is an attempt to try to buckle down on that run defense, right?
The run defense, and not only that, and to keep the pass rush, strong. I think on both accounts.
Does he have some push on the pass rush?
I believe he does. I don't. He's not a super fast guy, but he's solid. But his tape says that he actually can be a force rushing the passer, but he's certainly getting into the run. But I think him coming in is going to add just another player, obviously to make up for our loss that we had, but another player to the rotation to keep the guys fresh.
Right on, Nathan. This guy used to go around USC on a skateboard with a pet iguana. Um, Pete Carroll type of guy.
Yeah, and I think the big one, I think I heard it on sports radio in Seattle, but they pulled someone in from New York to talk about him. And the really big one with him is he just stays on the field. He almost doesn't miss any games. He can play 90% of the snaps, and he'll play those snaps on like a Pro Bowl or even at times all pro level. And I think just taking a lot of pressure off someone like Frank Clark means Frank Clark is going to be in the backfield all game. Boye Mafi's on like a 5-game, I think, sack streak. Those guys aren't necessarily going to win you the game, shutting down the run. And it just takes so much pressure off of them and the attention onto the big guy in the middle. And I think that's just going to really help the D-line. We noticed on certain plays, it felt like a lot of the edges would kind of collapse and they'd run right through that. And I think some of that pressure won't be on the edge rushers to worry about the run game when you have a guy like that playing almost every single game and as many snaps as he needs to. And I'm actually really excited about him.
Two things. One, you didn't bristle at the fact that he had a pet iguana and used to skateboard with it. That doesn't seem to bother you. But two, to the point of the edge rushers, I don't know about this guy's last couple of weeks. I find that our edge rushers crash down too much. They're too aggressive, especially on the run, and it lets big plays happen, especially on those screens. And I worry about that.
Yeah, the screens. Not to mention, again, we with a running quarterback and a good running back. Again, if they crash down on a read option look, I mean, Lamar Jackson around the edge is going to be nasty. I think that they will game plan for this, though. I have to imagine that they're going to be looking at the tape in the auditorium over the course of this week, and reminding our edge rushers to not crash so hard on what they think they see. To your point, if they do, it's gonna be rough.
Guys, Mafe had a big game last week. Was that his coming out party?
I mean, I think he tied the Seahawks record for most sacks in a row,
Yeah.
and I feel like when they announced it, it came out of nowhere. So if you could say it like that, it was a little bit of a coming out party. But I do remember his name a few times last year, and he's flashed at times. And I think he's just another product of just the secondary being so shut down. It gives that extra little bit of couple steps maybe to get to the quarterback that last year in particular we were missing. And I'm just really excited that that's the one part of the field where I think we'd really dominate the Ravens, and Lamar Jackson is just, I don't think his wide receivers quite match up. I'm a little worried about Andrews in the middle, their tight end. But in terms of wide receivers, I think our corners can really shut them down and maybe even get some turnovers. So yeah.
Is Jamal Adams playing at a different level than previously? I see him all over the place. He did that header to win the game.
Yeah.
Um, Seems like some renewed vigor in Jamal Adams.
Ah,
No,
so
no.
I'm I have reservations, and not that he's not out there playing, with renewed vigor, as you put it, or even that he's playing 100%. It's just that you know that header looked just is. I mean, sure he jumped 50 feet in the air. Number one, that was, it was an amazing physical effort, if nothing else, right? But I mean, was it not maybe just as much of a freak accident, or as much as it was his ability? I mean, he didn't put his hand up, it didn't look like to me. The ball literally bounced off of his head, and I feel like that we may have just been the fortunate beneficiary of that play, so much as it was a play actually made. Obviously someone had to catch it on the other end, but I don't know. I'm happy for it to happen the way that it did, but I mean, maybe great players, create great teams, create their own luck. Great, people who are good. If you're good at something, you create your own luck, right? So maybe that's just how it works. But I don't know if I'm how much I'm putting on it.
Yeah, I'm glad though you mentioned that header, because for me that's just so Jamal Adams, and it feels like the other part of Jamal Adams that was tough to watch were those passes over his head where he'd get
Mm-hmm.
burned, and it does feel like just having Tariq matched up with Witherspoon gives him a little bit more freedom to go wild, be Jamal Adams, play all over the field, head some balls for some interceptions, and that is one thing I'm liking about where he's at with this team. Is it feels like this team and the way the defense is set up lets people like Adams play the way Adams wants to play, be a freak all over the field, do what he wants to do, and just try to make plays to win the game. Yeah.
Speaking of Witherspoon, NFL rookie or defensive rookie of the month. Um, we're 7 games in with Witherspoon. Actually, Witherspoon's probably played 5 of those 7. Um, Initial thoughts? I mean, I know there were a lot of people thinking, do we really spend a fifth overall on a cornerback?
I mean, his play is speaking for itself. I mean, he's out there making plays over and over again. He's being a force. He's throwing his body around. He's making big hits. I mean, we haven't, since he's been on the field, we haven't had a game where we didn't talk about him. He's certainly putting his name in the hat. I was questionable about the pick, in full disclosure, but it seems to be a hit. So you can't take anything away. You got to give people their flowers when they deserve it. And Devin Witherspoon is certainly earning his. And Pete and John are showing that after all, they do know what they're doing still.
I have to laugh. You said you were questionable about the pick. Um, I do. Yeah, I find you questionable. So, guys,
Yeah,
I thought you.
I would say too, last week, I know, PJ Walker's no Matthew Stafford or even Jared Goff this season, but Woolen and Witherspoon, when they were targeted, they gave up a 6.5 passer rating last week. Like, they were the definition of shutdown. I think that's pretty close to if he just threw the ball at the ground every play. So there was some little bit of ticky tack kind of penalties on Woolen, or maybe a pick that he could have grabbed and it would look even better. And it just felt like, even though they're at, rookie of the month level, Witherspoon, and then the way Woolen's playing as well now, it just seems like the sky's the limit. It seems like they can do even more. They can impact the game more, and I'm just really excited to watch how much they're going to grow this season.
Granted, we got to give them more games, but I mean, how are you guys feeling about Witherspoon, Enrique Woolen, Julian Love, Diggs, Adams as Legion of Boom 2.0?
I think they have the makings of being indeed that LOB 2.0. I don't really like that name. I think I've tried to stay consistent in that. We should stay away from that. But if they're gonna twist our arm, right, and make us call them that, then fine. If they can actually live up to it. I think really however good they're going to look though is going to be dependent on how we do on the front, though. If we can continue being good on the front, you don't have to be great on the front, just good on the front. Then yeah, I think that secondary has. I mean, the sky's the limit.
I know what Nathan's going to say, so I want to get to you, SoCal. Nathan, you can follow up.
Yeah.
When Chase Young went to the Niners, when Montez Sweat went to the Bears, what was your initial thoughts, SoCal? As far as, did the Seahawks lose out?
It felt like it really felt like So we signed Leonard Williams, and I was like, great, awesome, this is wonderful. And because my only concern is the San Francisco 49ers, right? So we signed Leonard Williams, this is great, and then it was less than 24 hours later, right? They go and they get Chase Young, and I'm like, damn it, they just have to keep one-upping us. Right, like it's just we took over first place. We went and got a good pass rusher. Like we're really solidifying our spot here. We're making a push to take this division, and then they go get Chase Young. I'm like, all right. So here we are back to square one. I mean, we're still in first place, but the Niners they indeed got better. There's no argument there. They got better on their front side, on their front end, on the defense, and they've just become more of a problem. Now we'll see what's going on with their offense, but their defense definitely got better. I was rubbed, to say the least.
And then Nathan, you said I texted with you, and I know you have some comments on this and why Leonard Williams was actually a decent pickup, even though it may have cost us more.
Yeah, so for me, I actually would rather have Chase Young or Sweat, but given the cap situation with the Seahawks, they just don't have that flexibility, and it seems like Sweat, for example, is about to get a huge payday, and the Bears will probably give that to him. They have an insane amount of cap room, actually, with the rookie deal on their quarterback, and it's similar kind of with the 49ers and Purdy. So, yeah, I would really like Sweat. I would like this premier Chase Young, defensive end. But I think given the cap space, given that the Giants are willing to pay for Leonard Williams' contract this year, I just think we got about as good as we could get. Yes, it's a bummer that the Niners seem to be just full in on the arms race with us. But at the same time, with this team, even without Leonard Williams, the Seahawks are one-upping them so far this season. And, those are just going to be some really fun games around Thanksgiving. And hopefully Leonard Williams is, a bigger impact than Chase Young ends up being.
Two guys that don't get the publicity, but you brought them up earlier, Rob. You said Frank Clark. And then also on the offensive side, Jason Peters. We got to see both of them on Sunday. Any initial impressions? Are these good fits? Are they just average guys, or swings and misses? What do you guys think?
Well, I think Jason Peters played great. I don't think he gave up anything. So I mean, him coming in as a little longer in the tooth. You kind of question what are you going to get out of this guy, and so far so good, and I hope that continues. Frank Clark was effective immediately. I think one of his first plays on the field, he was in the face of the quarterback. Didn't get the sack, but he definitely affected the play. Affected the play. So so far, those two additions are working wonders. It looks like as we progress through the season and you have the attrition, that certainly is going to set in at some point. It looks like the guys that we have on the roster are going to be able to, to wear the shoe or fill the roles and be competitive. So it's looking good.
I feel like those are sneaky. Those are two sneaky good picks. Obviously, Frank Clark got a little hammy, so he couldn't play the whole game. But what about you, Nathan? What are your thoughts on those two pickups?
Yeah, so I might be a little out there, and I like watching defense a lot. And this Cleveland team, I've watched a few games of theirs, and Myles Garrett might be the best DN in the NFL. Maybe it's both the Bosa or Watt crowd on that, but he's just played at such an insane level. You've heard his name every game. He's always in the backfield. And this is one of the first games where I felt like no one said Myles Garrett the whole game. Mm-hmm. And that's Peters right there. And I think it gets underrated sometimes on the O-line when it's just not talked about, but that is insane. That might have been the best player in the entire game, shutting down like a premier D end in the NFL and making it like, was he in the game? We're not sure. Maybe Myles Garrett was off, maybe got a little too heavy of a Halloween costume and didn't have the energy. I'm not sure, but all year long, I haven't seen that. He's been a game wrecker, and the O-line, and I think Peters in particular just made him a non-factor, and that was awesome.
And to Nate's point, they did move Garrett around. They did switch him, from side to side a couple of times, and he's still, So I mean, this makeshift line is working. I mean, imagine how good we're going to be when we get everybody back, because Garrett didn't just stay on one side the whole time, and he ended up finally getting one sack at the end, right? So, it's working. Don't rock the boat.
So Cal, sometimes I feel like we're surrounded by fools, by people who don't have any faith in what you and I have to say. Because you and I both said, don't sell the Seahawks short, and we think the 49ers are going to have to take a step back. So who's in first place? You and I, Rob, we said they'd be in first place in the NFC West. And then some other people that are sometimes on the show, maybe one who's even producing, doubted us. They doubted us.
Yes. I have to be totally forthcoming. I did believe that there was a chance that we could end up in this position. But when you look at weeks 1 through 5 or whatever, the Niners did look unstoppable. I mean, and I do believe that if they get back to full strength, they're still going to be a problem. But we have positioned ourselves at this point to be able to push and make that run, especially when we got Thanksgiving coming up. And if we can if we can just split the series with the 49ers, that's going to be huge. So, I was obviously hopeful, and I had a feeling that this Brock Purdy thing that's happening, that for sure I for sure called that, and we are learning that without all of those weapons, right? Yeah. Brock Purdy looks very much human. It's like, okay, they were talking about this guy was going to be MVP 4 weeks into the season, and you take away just one weapon, one offensive weapon, one left tackle, and he's just a dude. He's Jag. What's his name called? Jag, just a guy. He's just a guy.
Another guy.
Yep. Just another guy.
Yeah, you're SoCal, by the way, you're a better man than me. I would have laid into the Soul Man and that dirty dog. I was setting you up for it, and you took the high road. Good for you. How about you, Nathan? Well, where do you feel like we're in first place here in the NFC West after 7 games?
I'm feeling really good. Like, even if they lose to Baltimore in the next 6 games, that was the kind of group of games we were talking about. I could totally see them, beating the Commanders, Rams, Stafford's hurt. I could see them winning that game. And then Cowboys, I think, are a bad matchup. Even if they lose 2 to the Niners and the Eagles, 3-3, I think they're still right in it come playoffs. And I think just Schneider and Carroll are thinking the same exact way, because they're picking up a guy like Leonard Williams. How often have we seen Schneider in the middle of the year at the trade deadline give up something like a 2nd-round pick? That's like unheard of. So I think the team is really realizing they have something going, something's cooking. The defense is, I think, really scary, and I'm pretty excited, actually. This 5-2 is not something we see very often at any team in the NFL, and that's where they are. And I think that's a pretty good sign on the rest of the season.
If I can counter that real quick, Abe, I do think though, I pretty much agree with you, Nate, but I do think if we can't figure out a way to go out to Baltimore and win this game, I think that does really, at least at this point, kind of show us where our ceiling is, and maybe not ceiling, but it shows us where we're really at, because yes, we're 5-2, right? And we've won some games. We took out the Browns, who had a great defense, right? But you've got to be able to go out there and beat the teams that are also being considered contenders, right, for a Lombardi Trophy. And so this is one of those games right here. I feel like if we can't go to Baltimore and figure out a way to win this game, I believe that is a bigger setback than you might think, Nate, because that's just step one. That's just the first of some games. We might make the playoffs, sure, but are we going to beat the Niners and the Philly teams and these other teams that are Super Bowl potentials? Even if we make the playoffs, right? So we've got to go out there and show that we can go on the road and beat a good team like the Baltimore Ravens.
All right, guys. What's our projections for this game? It's a 10 o'clock game on the East Coast. I just want to throw my pick out there first because the last 4 weeks the Seahawks have had the number one scoring defense, and I just want to say I picked the Browns Seahawks game to be low scoring. I'm going to pick this one to be a third straight week, a third ugly game in a row, and it's going to be Seahawks 14, Ravens 10. I got Seahawks for a win.
Ooh, I don't do this often. I don't. I don't even know the last time I did, but I'm going to pick the Seahawks to lose this game. Yeah, I
guy that we look to every week.
I know. I never do this, right, Abe? I never do this, but I see this team. I argue with people all the time, like, I love my Seahawks, but I try to be objective. And I think that we are a team that's going to be there. I think we're on our way there. I am not totally convinced that we're there yet. And I hope I'm proven wrong, but I'm going to say, something, I'm going to throw a number out there like 26-21. I think we fight all the way down to the end, but I think we fall short in this one. And it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. And I think we pick up the rear after the fact. Maybe go beat Dallas, something like that. But this one, I think we might just be a bit over our head.
I think you only did that, SoCal, because you know that if you're wrong, you'll still be happy.
That's not true. That's not true.
Yeah, so I sadly have to follow Rob too on mine, but yeah.
Oh no! I'm getting outmanned here. What's your projection?
I think this is the first time I picked against the Hawks, but I think the Ravens are either the best team right now or the hottest team right now in the NFL. They just beat a super good Lions team 38-6. I think they're getting their all-pro left tackle back this week. Lamar Jackson's just going to have too many running lanes, and I don't think this is the defense that Geno's going to be able to put 30 points on, and I think it'll be 31-27. Ravens will win.
Okay, you guys got a higher scoring game, and so does the Soul Man, Brian, our producer, has the Hawks 34-29. I guess we'll find out. Wait, how do you get 29 points, Brian?
A couple safeties, yeah.
All right, we're doing shout outs here. Do you guys have any shout outs for this week?
You know what? I'm going to take a easy route here, and I'm going to give a shout out to the Seattle Seahawks because I don't believe that there's anybody who would have said something. No one would have said and actually been serious about it. And if anyone who would have said it, I wouldn't have taken them seriously that 8 weeks into the season, we would be in the number one spot in the NFC West. So hats off to the entire organization for making it to this point. So, big up to the Seahawks. That's my shout out.
And for you, Nathan?
Yeah, so I'm wearing his jersey, even though he's on a different team that I don't really want to name now. But they did just win the World Series, and Corey Seager was the MVP. It's a tough pill to swallow on the team that won it, as a Mariners fan. But Corey Seager played a great series, so you can shout him out. And a big World Series win for him.
First World Series MVP from two different teams, right? Oh, no. Yeah. Reggie Jackson was as well.
Oh, okay. But, yeah, I know he got MVP with the Dodgers a few years ago, and then he was the MVP this year. So,
yeah, Exactly. That's pretty amazing. And I'm going to give a shout out to Joe Doyle. He's from Future Star Series. He's a baseball prospects guy, and he was on the show right before us. And you'll see him on SeattleSportsUnion.com. As well, you'll see our podcasts on Spotify, iTunes, Captivate FM, and North Beach Community TV. Thank you again for joining us on the Seattle Sports Union, and keep touch with us on social media at Facebook and on X at Seattle Sports U. And a big thank you to everybody watching on behalf of the Soul Man Brian Solak, the SoCal Seahawk Rob English, Nathan Savage, myself Abraham Deweese. We'll see you guys next time.
Go Hawks.